All right, Mr. Jury. Yes, last time out you came.
Yes.
You gave 2 dates. And you said something that I have not seen any Nigerian government do before.
That's correct.
You said, mark our words so you can hold us accountable to the things we say.
That's right.
2021, 2023.
You're right.
2 important dates you gave us last time out that you came around. And you said those dates will be dates that we will no longer be screaming out on a regular up NEPA.
I'll go ahead and just inform our people as to why those particular years are going to be some very memorable years in the life of our nation. Last time I was on the program, we touched a number of sectors, but we spent a lot of time on the power sector, and rightfully so, because we know that this has been an area, if there's one area where every Nigerian, across political affiliation, across age groups, across ethnic lines, religious lines, linguistic lines, you name it, that they are jointly concerned about is a top priority is power. And we know that in 2010, 2011 and all of that, we were told by different governments that that we're going to have 40,000 megawatts of electricity by 2020. It did not happen.
It did not happen.
So naturally, our people are going to be very skeptical anytime any government official comes to talk about the power sector, because they're tired. What they want is power and nothing else.
Nothing else.
So this is what it is. This is what's happening now. And again, like you said rightfully, we want our people to hold us to account. And this is why I want to break down the difference between what happened before and what is happening right now. Previously, in what the means of power generation, the process by which governments tried to generate power and transmit and distribute power, was essentially to pull out a whole bunch of money from maybe the excess crude account in a particular case, in some other cases federal government budget, and essentially domicile it in some federal agency, maybe even the Federal Ministry of Power, for example. But in other cases, it's the Niger Delta Power Holding Company that's government run. And essentially, they would now leave it essentially in the hands of the chief executive officer of that ministry or agency to dole out this huge quantum of money to whoever he wanted to bring on board to do contract work, etc., whether it's wife, nephew, best friend, party crony, and all of that. Now, as a result, we know what happened. We know that many power plants were not finished. Some were at 10%, even though the person was fully paid 100%. We have a particular case where a man, one Nigerian, was paid $2 billion US. $2 billion US, not naira. Now, he was paid that entire money, and he did not accomplish up to 50% of the project. Till today. We're talking of something that is 12 years old. Till today, it is still in that state. So now, that is what has happened before. So now President Muhammadu Buhari comes in and he says, well, okay, how can we dramatically alter this process? Because clearly, if we continue to entrust all of this responsibility in the hands of the Nigerian bureaucratic system, there are going to be serious problems in terms of implementation. So what he now did was last year in August, German Chancellor Angela Merkel paid him a visit in the presidential villa, and they had a discussion. As a consequence of that discussion, they agreed that the global engineering giant, the German engineering giant Siemens, would essentially be the contractor of the federal government of Nigeria to essentially do an overhaul across power generation, in some cases transmission. They're going to be doing some adjustments in transmission, but the major work is in generation and especially in distribution. So now, this is how it breaks down. Because we are determined to cut middlemen out of these processes.
Which are the Nigerian bureaucrats.
That's right, Nigerian bureaucrats, from civil service to National Assembly to ministers. And look, we respect our officials. We don't want to paint all of our officials with a negative brush, because we have some very good men and women in this country doing their best. But we know that there are some bad eggs, and we're trying to avoid those landmines that are bad eggs in the system. So now, what we have done is we're doing a government-to-government transaction. What this means in specific terms is that the German-funded German Export Credit Agency, that's German Export Credit Agency, it's like a bank, almost like our own Afrexim bank, they are going to fund the entire project with 80% an 80% loan facility. Now, the Nigerian government is going to pay a 20% counterpart fund for the project. We have already set aside the counterpart fund in this 2020 budget that is going to, for the first time in several years, is going to finally run from January to December. And later I'll get into why that's important for Nigerians. But because it's now been it's been set and improved within the MTEF, that's the medium-term expenditure framework for the 2020 financial year, we are going to send about 61 billion naira from the Federation account direct to Germany for this project. Yes, from the Federation account. It's not going through a minister. It's not going through any of that. Now, that's on ground. So now, with the German Export Credit Agency doing 80%, they are going to take that money. They're not paying to anybody in Nigeria. They are paying directly to Siemens. So the German bank this bank is going to send that money directly to Siemens. So Siemens on in this matter is to collect money from this German bank, collect our own counterpart fund directly from source Federation account, and now manufacture all of the items that are required for installation in Nigeria. So our own is now supervision. Our own is oversight. We have nothing to do with procurement. We have nothing to do with budgeting. We have nothing to do with finance. We have nothing to do with any of that because President Muhammadu Buhari said this work is getting done and nobody is going to stop it from happening. So now, what is on ground? How the process works in terms of how it is, how we have set it up is this.
Okay.
Over the last 6 months, very quietly, with no press, Siemens engineers have moved around the country with Nigerian engineers in conjunction with the private owners of the distribution companies and other stakeholders.
That's the power distribution.
Yes, the power distribution companies that many of us.
Yes, real quick, for me to make the people out there understand, just like Ella said the other time, plain layman English.
Right.
The power we are talking about is lights.
That's what we're talking about.
Lights.
The one that comes on and switches off. The one that you're watching television will just come out. It'll just
lights.
We're talking of that light, yes. Yes. So now, what they've done is these Siemens engineers went around the country with all the stakeholders in conjunction. All of them have formed a technical committee where they listened to the Nigerian distribution company owners and said, look, what are your problems? What exactly is it that is stopping you from receiving the generated power, the transmitted power, and giving it to your people? And they have now laid out all of the issues and all of that. So it's been a very coordinated and synergized effort. That's very important. So there's no gap between all of the stakeholders. Everybody's been around the table. Now, so they went all across the country. They toured all of the distribution infrastructure in the country, the substations nationwide in all of the distribution companies around the country. They, with their technical audit by their engineers, they were able to identify in each location what needs to be upgraded, what needs to be reconstructed, and what needs to be newly constructed. That's just additions. Now, based on that, they developed a very clear roadmap that this is what we need to bring into the country, this is what we need to add or take away, and all of that and all of that. Now, with that roadmap, they're now bringing to the Nigerian government the bill of quantities. That essentially is the bill that says this is what you're buying. This infrastructure, this is what you need. This is what you're buying. This is the cost. This is the price, and all of that. Now,
and there is no Nigerian involved in that directly.
No, there is no Nigerian government official that has to do with that process at all. This is something that is funded, like I said, 80% by the German Export Credit Agency and paid directly to their people in Siemens in Germany, all within Germany. And then our money is going to Germany as well. So
government to
government transaction. No middlemen, no consultants, no subcontractors. Siemens, and this is why Mr. President insisted. What happened before was with the NIPP $8 billion scandal, NIPP before, you had hundreds, in fact not even hundreds, thousands of different contractors and subcontractors, friends of different people. So what will happen is somebody can use a Mitsubishi part here, and then they will now bring one Siemens part here, then they will now bring one China part here. There's no standard at all. It's just a matter of collecting the contract and doing what you think you want to do, and in some cases not do what you don't want to do. So now we have a standardized set of equal standard, and we know that they have done it in Egypt, they've done it in Iraq, so it's not like it's a surprise. We have already seen what they have done. So because they are the top in the world in this field, in particular electricity generation and electricity related infrastructure, it was a natural fit. So now all the parts that are coming in are from one company. all are from one company, one contractor, and we're not bringing in subcontractors to come and add whatever piece. Nothing like that. So that is what the deal is. I know Nigerians want to hear when they can expect this power, because ultimately, you know, as much as what I've said is important, they want to have that light. And so this is basically what we're saying to Nigerians about that. According to our roadmap, we have the Siemens Group is bringing in from approximately January to July. They're going to be manufacturing all of these specified inputs that they're going to be bringing down. From July to December 2021. That is 1 year and 6 months. They are going to be doing installation across the country. Okay, that's phase one. Phase one is all distribution. You may ask, why distribution?
Why distribution?
Now, Mr. President saw that we've already spent billions of dollars on power plants, some built, some not, and all of that. We have generation capacity right now of about 11,000 megawatts, even though what is actually generated for several different reasons that have to do with distribution and also transmission is usually in the area of about 7,000 to 8,000 generation as we speak right now. Right now, as
and
we speak.
Have capacity
we have of 11 to 12,000. That's correct. That's correct. That's correct. Now, but what the generation companies need is the capital that they would realize from distribution companies who pay for the power they receive. The problem is that our distribution companies were privatized and put in the hands of individuals who clearly did not have the capital they needed to fulfill the contracts that they signed in 2013. That has really put us behind the ball. But now we want to look forward now. We want to be forward-looking. So now what is going to happen is Mr. President essentially has now said that, look, if we fix distribution in the quickest time possible, we can get that 7,000 megawatts into the homes and businesses of Nigerians. And to understand how important that is, you would have to appreciate that currently the real distribution, the real thing that Nigerians are currently sharing right now nationwide, hovers around 2,500 megawatts.
You say what?
Distribution capacity, the one that we receive, the one that we use currently in the nation, yes, it ranges between 2,500 and about 3,300, depending on whether it's raining, depending on some other factors. But that's the band. But usually it hovers around 2,500 to 2,800 megawatts, thereabout. This is distribution. This is the power we see. So now what we are saying is that by the time we get distribution addressed and we can actually receive and distribute the 7,000 that we're talking about, you're looking at almost 3 times the power that we have right now.
Wow.
Now, anybody who knows that they're seeing about 10 hours or 7 hours under the current situation in a day, some people are 3 hours, you can know what it will mean to have 7,000 megawatts distributed and sent to Nigerians and homes and businesses.
Whatever we are having now times 3.
That is essentially that is it, because it's approximately, right? It's 2,500 times 3.
That's phase 1.
Phase 1 of the project is distribution. Mr. President said distribution is first. Once we address distribution, we can worry about the other things, but we need to make sure that first our people are getting the power that we're generating.
And for some that don't understand what we are talking about, if we get more power, production costs to run a business in Nigeria goes down.
And we attract investment. So when we talk to investors, the first thing they're telling us is, look, what are you going to do about these legendarily high costs of production? Obviously, central to that is going to be the power issue and them having to pay for their own diesel power generation and all of that. And then at an industrial scale, you know that is huge money. Huge. Then you're looking at road infrastructure, rail infrastructure. How are you going to manage the ports and all of that? How do we decongest the ports and create new opportunities that will streamline our port systems? That's something that I want to get into very quickly after I finish this. What Nigerians need to know is that by December 2021, phase 1, which deals with distribution, is going to be completed. That means that Siemens would have gone through and installed everything that needs to be installed and fixed everything that needs to be fixed across the country with distribution infrastructure. So our people should expect that distribution capacity will rise from where it is right now, which is that 2,500 to 3,000, up to 7,000 by December 2021. The president has said it openly, so it's not me talking. The president has said it to Nigerians already.
2021,
December 2021. That is essentially 2 years from now. That's what it is. So now that's that. Now, phase 2, and we really don't want to, because of our history, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We want to show Nigerians first that phase 1 is what we say it is, and this is what we're serious about what we're talking about. But phase 2, just for our people to know, is that by December 2023, we're building right now, we're in the process of finalizing the financing, I should say, to be very precise, on a $2.8 billion gas pipeline, because Mr. President has strategically he's looking into the future, and he can see that oil is going to give way eventually. By 2040, oil is not going to be the commodity that it is right now. But what will still be a very hot commodity internationally is gas. So what Mr. President is doing is he's placing the Nigeria into a kind of a strategic pivot from oil, maximizing our oil production now while it's still hot, but ensuring that we use those resources to pivot more into gas. So we finished the FID, the financial investment, the final investment decision on NLNG Train 7. Now what that means for us is that one third of our total gas production in the nation today, one third of it is going to be added to the current total of gas that we're adding, just with this one added Train 7 that we're putting into place. So it's a very big deal. That's just one effort. So now we're building this $2.8 billion pipeline that's going to come from the Niger Delta through Ajaokuta into Kaduna into Kano. Now the medium term, and this is why I say the president is a visionary. People don't yet know, but they're going to be finding out as time goes on. The reason why he's constructing it is for two reasons. One, we need to industrialize northern Nigeria. It's very, very important for several reasons. Social reasons, economic reasons. We need to do that. That's number one. Number two is we want to connect that gas pipeline up through Niger Republic into Algeria, Tunisia, and all of these North African countries that need our gas. They are dependent right now on insufficient gas supply from some other countries, and they have interest in making sure that we have this abundant gas, and that could be the future of the Nigerian economy. So instead of talking about oil revenues and talking about
we're switching already.
We're moving into agriculture. We're moving into solid minerals. We just struck a deal with Russia concerning the Ajaokuta steel plant. We have about a $1 billion investment coming in from a facility coming in from a Frexim bank to completely transform the Ajaokuta steel plant back to its original $5 billion investment state. So you have that, and then we have the Russians coming in with about $400 million to invest in the Nigerian iron ore mining company in Itakpe. So all of these things are going on to ensure that we're no longer importing steel. We can actually industrialize with our own steel, with our own hands, with our own everything.
And once that's done, job opportunities.
Once that's done, look, we're not reinventing the wheel. This has been done internationally. What we're doing is we're doing what other nations have already done. It's not a rocket science. It's just that what we have now that we didn't have before is a president that is in the villa, who you will not take a briefcase full of euros and dollars in the middle of the night to make him change his mind about the things that are important to Nigerians. That is the difference. That is the difference. So now, the issue is this. By the time that we get that power, that gas pipeline is a 3-year project. Okay. Now we're going to close financing on that with a Chinese firm within the next I believe it's now 4 months from now. I think we're expecting it around February or March to close on the finance. Now once that is done, we begin construction. Now on that pipeline, we're going to build 3 gas-fired power plants on that pipeline. Simultaneously, we're not waiting for the pipeline to finish. We're doing it together so that they finish together. So now what you're going to have is a gas-fired power plant in Abuja, 1,350 megawatts. You'll have a gas-fired power plant in Kaduna, 1,350 megawatts, and another gas plant in Kano, 1,350 megawatts. You put that together, that's 4,000 megawatts.
4,000 megawatts.
Now, right now we're at about I think about 85 to 90% on the Kaduna 215 megawatt power plant that we've been working on forever, but the president is going to finish it. Where we have the 700 megawatt Zungeru power plant that we're about 80% on, that we're going to finish as well. You have all sorts of power plants that we are finishing in conjunction with what I'm talking about right now. So Mr. President is absolutely confident that by December 2023 we are going to be able to assure Nigerians power generation, power transmission, and power distribution of 11,000 megawatts by December 2023. That is our assurance to our people. So this is the reason why we're coming out it's not because we're stupid. The reason why we're coming out is because we want Nigerians to know that we're not doing business as usual. If we're coming out with a timeline, we're saying it to Nigerians so that they will hold us to account. Because that is how trust is built between people and their government. And trust has been so eroded and destroyed in this country between people and their government that it's going to take this kind of effort to tell our people, this is what we're doing, this is when you should expect it. And by the time you live up to that, they will now begin to rebuild that trust. And that's what we're doing. We've done a lot of consultation with the private sector. It's been a major part of the reason why we have seen the first 2 times in Nigeria's history that our nation has been on that list of the World Bank's top 10 most improving countries in the ease of doing business rankings. In those 2 times have also been 2 of the last 3 years. Is that this administration is not focused just on hard infrastructure. It's also focused on soft infrastructure. Those things that Nigerians may not necessarily see, but they impact business conduct just as much as the hard infrastructure. For example, our regulatory agencies once had this kind of old school civil service mentality that, it's red tape. Right? We need to ensure that we gatekeep, that we try to. It's like you want to show that you're doing your job, so you want to create as much gatekeeping mechanisms as possible. But the world has moved on from that. It's no longer about just rigid gatekeeping. Now it's about how do you facilitate and actively work to enable business, because it's those that soft infrastructure, those regulatory agencies that will be encouraging people to say, look, if you need to register your business, instead of waiting 6 months and having to pay somebody a bribe, you're now able to do it online within 48 hours. These are the changes.
For instance, we're talking about going to the federal ministries, for instance.
Or CAC,
for instance. Computer Affairs Commission. Because I know sometimes you go down there and it takes you months and months and months. They tell you to go, come back, put you through a process. Yeah. And then at the end of the day, they say something for the boys.
You see, this has been our history. So now, we've been putting in place a series of measures from the online innovations in the CAC, linking it now to the FIRS so that you can have a single window of both the tax-related matters and business registration matters. We've also done reforms in the judiciary, in particularly in Lagos State and Kano State being the 2 commercial capitals of the country at the moment, where the chief judges of those 2 high courts have now put in new rules that limit adjournments. So now, instead of having an endless process when 2 businesses come to small claims court to contest an issue, before it used to be adjourned. Probably you have to pay a bribe to somebody. Now they put a limit on adjournments. So now issues are being resolved very quickly, and now they've even put in place what we call pre-trial conferences, which is like mediation, so that people can sit down and hash out issues without going through the whole legal process. So these are the kinds of reforms that the World Bank identified and said, look, these people are actually getting very serious, because not only do you have that we've done executive changes, which is what I mentioned in CAC, even in immigration, the e-visa and how quickly that has happened, now in the judiciary and also in the legislature. We passed in 2017 the Credit Reporting Act, which gives businesses insight into the credit history of various actors within the space, so that they're able to know who it is that they're dealing with. We put in place the Collateral Registry Act, so for the first time people are able to use movable assets as collateral in business transactions for the first time. So these are some of the things we put in place. Now I'm saying all of that because these are the things that make business easy to do, but ultimately it comes down to some of the hard infrastructure. Once you've settled the soft, you now have to go to the hard. That's roads, that's railways, that's ports. What has happened is that by May 2020, we've also had from the Minister of Transportation, the Lagos-Ibadan rail line, which we have been constructing since about, I think 2017, we started construction. It's supposed to be finished already, but what changed was that Mr. President was adamant that instead of the initial design, which was Iju here in Lagos to Ibadan, that it should be extended to get to Apapa Port. Because in the wisdom of the president, he said we must be able to decongest the ports in such a manner that does not require all these tractor trailers continuing to congest the place. So if we have that rail line going directly into the ports and we load those containers, yes, and we load them in Apapa Port, load them onto the rail line and take them out, then we can depressurize the roads and decongest the ports. So now, what we're doing simultaneously is we're now going to build an inland dry port in Ibadan. So now you're going to have an inland dry port in Ibadan that's going to off-take the containers from Apapa port off that rail line. So off of the roads completely, even as we're building the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. So we're constructing the new roads around the port, including the, obviously we know about Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, but even the Apapa-Oronshoki highway, we're doing several roads in that axis. Now we're saying that we're going to reconstruct those roads in such a manner that we're not reliant on those roads anymore for the entirety of our evacuations. So now we're going to be doing it by rail. We just signed a $3.9 billion contract with the Chinese rail construction company CRCC to build a new seaport in Wari, because we realized that we need to diversify away from Apapa. It has too much pressure. In fact, right now, I think they're handling about 4 times the container of that which they were even established to handle.
It spreads outside Apapa all the way to, Igomu,
of course,
the bridge over there, all Ijora, everywhere, containers and traffic.
So now what we've done is One is operable at the moment. One in River State, the One port. So what we've done in the immediate term is to give an incentive. The NPA has given a directive that all businesses that will bring in their containers through one of the eastern ports, One, etc., that we're going to give them offhand immediately. They decide to do so, a 10% discount on their levies and duties to encourage the use of the eastern ports to try and diversify away. While we construct the new seaport in Wari, we're also, obviously, the Lekki Deep Sea Port is also coming on. So we're going to have several ports in the country. But the $3.9 billion, the reason why it's very important, the $3.9 billion railway contract in the Wari port contract is all one contract, is we're extending the railway, that is the Wari-Itakpe Railway, which President Muhammadu Buhari revived in his first term, which had been abandoned since 1987. He finished the actual rail line. Now we're building stations along the rail line, but the rail line is still in use. He's now extending the Wari-Itakpe rail line to cut through Ajeokuta with a spur that will now go into Lokoja, Kogi State, up to Abuja. So what you're going to have, in effect, is from the Wari Seaport, inside the Wari Seaport, we're going to have the rail line connect inside the seaport, up through Itakpe, which obviously is where our mining company is, up through Ajeokuta, where the steel plant is, up through Lokoja, where you have the confluence, and then up to Abuja, where it will now connect with Kaduna and then eventually Kano.
Spread all over.
All over. And the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway is, Lagos-Ibadan Railway, when it goes, we get to the Ibadan to Kano, it's cutting through Abuja, Kaduna. So you see an intersection now from the east of the country, from the west of the country, you can now cut at a meeting point in Abuja. So we're going to be able...
from the south?
Absolutely, from the south, etc. And when we get into the Port Harcourt-Maiduguri rail line, that's also going to connect the entire eastern corridor of the country, including all of the capitals of the southeast states.
One real quick one.
Yes.
Will it be only for cargo or human?
No. It's for both. It's intentionally done for both. It's for passengers and it's also for cargo. And Nigerians have asked the question, why Lagos-Ibadan? Why was that the first one that we chose? We want our people to understand something. Everything we have done is based on a statistical analysis. We know that route from Lagos to Kano, starting with Lagos-Ibadan, carries the heaviest freight, traffic and freight, economic freight, agricultural goods, you name it, between Lagos and Kano. So that was why we said, this is the money we have, we need to invest it there first, so that we can open up the economy, and then from there we can expand southward and eastward and up north.
Wow.
So these are all the things that are being put in place right now by President Muhammadu Buhari. What I always tell people about this president is that, when you walk by a very beautiful house, a mansion, glass, steel, just lovely, right? Everybody will clap. They say, that one. I declare it in the name of, and all of that. They do all of that.
Yes.
But when you see a slab of concrete, which is the foundation, you will not clap.
You will not notice.
But when the superstructure is built on that foundation, you begin to clap. What is happening in the country right now is that President Muhammadu Buhari is not being thanked. He's doing the thankless work of laying that foundation, and nobody's going to clap for him. But when it's done, that's when people will now look back and say, "Chai, Baba tried, though.
Baba tried."
But that is. But the first things first, and the first thing is, let's get done what we're working on, so that Nigerians know that that change has come
in
a real manner.
And we are here now, we're having this discussion so the people can know what to look out for.
That's it.
And not just randomly say this, that.
Exactly.
This you said you will do. Did you deliver?
Did you deliver? That's how private organizations are run. Private sector businesses are run on timelines, on deadlines. We have to adopt that culture.
Okay.
We talk so much about China. You know, when you hear politicians especially, they like to refer to China and they say, look at Chinese results, Chinese achievements. Look, Chinese took hundreds of millions of Chinese out of poverty within 30 years, which is true. But I happen to study history in the university. I'm a historian by study.
Wow, okay.
And I know that we talk about Chinese achievements and results without talking about Chinese process. If you know what the Chinese went through to industrialize their country and the sacrifices that an entire generation of Chinese made to have the China of today that their children and grandchildren are enjoying, you'll be shocked. During the Cultural Revolution, what was China? China was an agro-based mono economy. They had hundreds of millions of subsistence farmers. These are farmers who farm simply to feed
themselves.
To feed themselves, exactly. Whatever small thing they have left over, they can now take to the market. But they're not industrial farmers. They're not business farmers per se. Subsistence. So what the Communist Party did was they said, look, we're going to have to do something draconian. Because they didn't have steel, they did not have industrial knowledge, they did not have any of that. What they now did is, because they were communists and they had a big brother communist country in Russia, they went to the Russians and said, look, we are going to give you our grains and you're going to give us Russian steel. You're also going to bring Russian engineers into China, and you're going to help us with Russian steel to start our first industries. And your Russian engineers are going to train our Chinese engineers. They used that grain that they took from these very poor subsistence farmers. And you had... I ask anybody who's interested, just Google it on your smartphone about the Cultural Revolution and how many Chinese starved to death. Millions starved to death. I'm not saying that obviously the times have changed, but my point is that we talk so much about the process of moving from being an import-based consumption economy to now being a production-based export economy. That transition takes sacrifice. It may not be death and starvation in the case of China, right? But in our own case, there are things that we have to do. That's when we talk about border closure. How do we stop smugglers so that our local producers will now be given the market share to be able to produce at the extent that to the extent that will now supply all of the Nigerian tables in the country. This is how you create local competition, which ultimately brings prices down. And people have asked me the question. They say, but isn't there something we could have done first? Is it that we had to go straight to closure? And I tell people, to understand why government took the decision it took and why we're ordering these steps the way we have ordered them, is this. Smugglers they're not an organization in the sense that there's no CEO of smuggling into Nigeria company. Association. There's nobody you're sitting down to negotiate with. You're talking about thousands of people that are operating in a racket.
Individually.
So now, the only way you can determine the full market share of what these people are actually smuggling into the country and how much of what we consume is being smuggled is to, first of all, cut them off.
Cut their supply route.
You cut their supply off. Very shocked to hear some of these individuals come out and say to Nigerians that this is an abuse of free trade. Abuse of free trade, that we should allow criminal racketeers to the tunes of hundreds of millions of dollars in the name of free trade.
Mr. Jury.
I happen to be from the Niger Delta. I'm from Ogoniland in River State, on my father's side. And you know, one of the challenges we have, and that we have to be realistic about the challenges that we have and honest with ourselves, is that we have a very serious problem with piracy in that part of the country. And part of the major I wish we could have really taken time to look at the foreign trips of the president and what he accomplished for the country in Russia and Saudi Arabia, because it's very important. But I can only touch on one right now because of time, and it's relevant to what my friend asked. We've signed a strategic deal with the Russians to not only supply 12 Mi-35 attack helicopters. Anybody who has studied war history about the 1980s Afghan-Russian war will tell you what those Mi-35s can do. Now, that's on the one end. On the other end, we have signed a deal that they are going to, because they have very hefty experience, long experience in the Black Sea, in the Strait of Hormuz with Iran. They know the territory of oil maritime. So what they're now going to do is they're going to come and build capacity locally, not just in terms of knowledge, but with the hard infrastructure to be able to effectively combat the issues of piracy. Now, to my friend's question, is we have to first address the issues of piracy, because if you're bringing in a container from anywhere in the world, right, and you know that if I bring it to Apapa, yes, I'm going to go through some serious problem, there's going to be inconvenience and all of that, but I know my container go reach. I can get my container eventually, and I can take it from Apapa to wherever I want to take it to. Now, if it comes to another port and I don't feel confident in the security of that area, what now happens is, if it gets to the port, if it doesn't have any issues on the waters, which is one concern, now it now gets on land. Now the issue is, what is the road infrastructure like in that part of the country? What are the peculiarities in that part of the country as it relates to issues of kidnapping, as it relates to issues of extortion, as it relates to... we have to be very sincere with ourselves about what the peculiar challenges of each region are. Particularly as someone from River State, I can tell you we have our own challenges. So I think when we talk about investment, we talk about ports and why people are choosing to overpopulate Apapa, we have to factor in all of these other details, because these are the things that our investors are thinking about, our business people are thinking about when they take these decisions. The reason why we have slammed very hefty duties on, for example, car imports, rice imports, etc., is that we are absolutely determined that this massive crisis that we have with unemployment, my brother, we have 1.7 million Nigerian youths coming into the workforce every single year. That means that if you are a government and you effectively create 1 million jobs every single year, the unemployment rate is still growing. That is the crisis we have. So now, what Mr. President has said is that whether in our rice, whether in our phone, whether in our pharmaceuticals, whatever it is, we have to ensure that there are some specific items that are high demand items, right? That if we put big tariffs, big levies, big duties on those items, what now happens? We can spur local production. Why? Because it is because of Mr. President's 70% levy on rice importation, for example, that we have had unprecedented investment in rice mills all around the country. That is why we have gone from paying $3 billion every single year under previous governments to import rice, almost entirely imported rice, to now producing almost 70 to 80% of our rice. And we are determined to make that 100% and export that rice by 2022. So now, what we're saying is that those levies are strategic. It's not because we're stupid. It's not because we don't know that what Benin is doing. We are saying that it's because of those levies that people are now going to be building local facilities for local production. And finally, the issue of car imports. We have seen what is happening. For example, look at Innocent Motors now. This administration has been very active in ensuring that we invest, that we patronize Innocent Motors. Go to immigration offices around the country. You are going to see fleets and fleets and fleets of Innocent vehicles. Even if you hear from the chairman of Innocent Motors himself, he will tell you that this federal government has done so well to patronize his organization, and will continue to, because he's employing Nigerians, he's paying tax to the Nigerian government, and this is what we're trying to encourage. From rice production to car manufacturing, you name, even in Kaduna, there's a Peugeot factory assembling cars. They're doing that because they recognize that very soon, by the time we get power supply stabilized with this Siemens deal, for example, they can now go from assembly to full-on manufacturing and production.
In Nigeria.
And in Nigeria, creating Nigerian jobs. There's no two ways about it. We cannot have our cake and eat it too.